Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games, The Week in Games. This is the weekly segment I do about once a month, going over the state of the games industry and a few odds and ends and assorted things as well. I hope you're all doing well. Welcome to a lot of new folks that are subscribing this month. That was, welcome. I always enjoy having people come and join the conversation. I try to keep it conversational. I like having it small so I can answer everybody's comments as often as I can. And I've already benefited from a new subscriber who gave me some great information on a game that I'll talk about shortly. Weather's great this week. We're in the 80s. I love the 80s. Long live the 80s. That does mean, unfortunately, that I have to spend more time outside watching the other neighbors do yard work, but then it gets dark and I play games. So let's get to the news. Alright, for those of you who know some of my previous great games, War Chest is a fantastic game by Dave Thompson, my favorite version of a chess-like game that I've ever played. I played it once, bought it immediately, bought every expansion pack. It's just a joy. Little did I know, and I'm very grateful for Wayne Gaskin, who joined us from Ireland, says that there is now a online version of War Chest, and it's been out for a while. And why I didn't know this, I do not know. It came out of nowhere to me. I dropped the ball. I missed the boat. Whatever it is, but definitely War Chest Online. I've started playing it. It's absolutely great. As you know, War Chest is not a great one-player game. It's a two-player game, or three or four, but I like it at two. And so finding that online and starting to play games, and I'm going to probably keep doing that. But if anybody's really interested in War Chest during these times when they can't play, I definitely highly advise it. I'll put the link to it down below to join in. But it's, I think, a very faithful and very quality reproduction, and definitely could use more people playing games on there. They've got a nice audience that I've seen so far. And so join on in, anyone who's interested in doing that. So in other news, Monster Hunter World has started its Kickstarter. As a matter of fact, it's going on right now, right while I'm recording this video, which is not really when you're going to watch it, but still, nonetheless. Monster Hunter World is a hugely popular computer game, and this is a board game rendition by people who have done Dark Souls, the board game, in the past, and it's had highs and lows, mixed reception. Monster Hunter World, however, looked clever enough and curious enough that I felt like I wanted to go ahead and dive in and back it this year. So that's what I did. If you'd like to, yeah, check it out too. Monster Hunter World, the board game. And finally, a reprint of an older game is coming out called Hibachi, and this one cracks me up because I'm kind of a sucker for dexterity games, even though the amount of games I buy that are dexterity versus the amount of games I enjoy that are dexterity has a wide variance. But Hibachi from Grail Games is a recreation of Japanese chefs, and what you're doing is you're basically throwing your chips onto basically this big barbecue hibachi kind of thing, and secretly kind of planning where you want to grab and how many of the materials you want to grab so you can serve customers. So that one looks quirky. I know I'm going to go ahead and give it a shot when it comes out. Perhaps you want to too. Now, that's it. That's all I got. If you guys got any news, please let me know. Again, I appreciate it. I've already gotten some good info on War Chest, which I never knew existed, so definitely appreciate the bi-directional communication, so thank you for that. Let's get to my question of the week. Okay, so about every year or two, I start getting my local people kind of give some comments, and I've heard some rumblings, but one of the questions I have, and this is, most of the time my questions are whimsical and comical, and sometimes thoughtful, and sometimes just filled with hair, but in this case, I do like to answer every once in a while the question that a lot of people have, especially those who are new, which is, why are you always so positive? It's kind of a line of, you're too positive with your games reviews, how come all you ever do is say nice things about games, how can I trust you if all you ever say is nice things about games and stuff, and I do like to answer that. I'm not combative. I understand everyone has a different expectation of people they want to review. I'm casual, as you know. I clearly do not have issues with I'm clearly not a suit kind of guy, but part of it's the mindset, and I will explain this to you. First off, let me caveat. you really haven't seen all my videos if you think all I do is talk about the good things of games. There are a couple that I really, really didn't like and made that clear last year. So it's not entirely true. But the big thing is this. I go into a mindset of a board game in this fashion. I want to have fun. That's the goal I have when I open a game. I want to have fun. And I want to trust that someone wanted to make a fun game. Whether these two overlap, that's what I'm trying to figure out. But that's different than some other video reviewers that I think I've seen, and local folks, or some people I think like the idea of dissecting or evaluating or critiquing a game. And that's more their groove, where they're like, I want to, make sure people get their value and, do that stuff. That's just not me, and that's okay. Like, everyone has their different criteria. I just think that I want to go in hopeful that this game is good. Generally, with the wealth of information now, there's two ways I go into a game. Either it's I did my homework and I'm pretty sure it's going to be something I'd like, or B, I'm taking a risk because I don't know enough about it, but I'm going to take a risk and I'm going to go ahead and buoy my expectations based on the risk. And so I don't usually get surprised negatively. Like I do get surprised positively, as we'll find out in a couple of reviews coming up in the next couple of weeks. But to be fair, yes, I am generally feeling like I would rather be positive. And the other thing is it's an emotionally driven thing. I don't make any money off of it. I have nothing to prove. I got nothing to make money wise. I love it that way. That's what exactly I want this station to be, or this tiny little hole of the internet to be, corner of the internet, is that I want it to be something where it's just joy. Like, I bought this game because I wanted to get joy from it, not to be condolicious, and so in that light, it is going to tend more towards positive. I'm going to feel like I played this game, or we played this game, several times. I really liked it. Gosh, I'd like to tell everybody how cool it is a lot more along the lines of how I wind up choosing what to review than going through a list and going, I'll do this and that, and oh, I hate this or I hate that. That doesn't mean I don't have bad reviews. But the other thing is that when I do a negative review, I'm a lot more careful about specifically why I don't like it. It either has to be something that's clearly and unequivocally phoned in, or it has to be something where there are things that just really cut underneath my experience of thousands of board games playing them through. And that, I think, is fair. Again, like, there's a couple reviews coming up that aren't necessarily positive, and I think I'm going to prove that point. But the biggest thing, though, is, like, kind of, now there isn't any biggest thing. It's just how I do reviews here, and I'm waxing eloquent far too long on this, or uneloquent. But the one big thing, though, that I really am a stickler for is I never take a dime. I never take a free game. I don't do any of that stuff because I'm hugely, hugely of the mind that I never want to give the impression of compromise. Where if I say that I didn't like this game, I put my money in like everyone else and I said I didn't like it. If I say I adore this game, I paid the same price and no one gave me a free copy, kind of thing. I'm not suggesting anything with other people. I just know that I feel very much like I'm validating my opinion by putting my money where my mouth is. And that's kind of how I feel about it. Again, everyone's different. But so to answer the question, yes, I wouldn't trust myself if all I ever did was positives. But in general, I want to, if at all possible, enjoy a game. And you will see that reflected in the reviews that I do. That said, well, someday I'll explain why. 30 years ago, I was not that way. 30 years ago, I did video game reviews. And I was the exact opposite of what I am now. And that really, there were things that happened during that time that changed how I approach things. And I think for the better. So maybe you don't, maybe you do. Anyway, that's the question I have this week, and I hope I answer a couple of those people, at least in a somewhat mature and civilized fashion. But let's get over that. Let's get to 3 games. Okay, first up we have Monster Hunter World. Nope, I guess not. I guess this is Monster Expedition. That's right. Earlier, a couple years ago, Carnival of Monsters came out, Richard Garriott, which is a card game about capturing monsters. Kind of like Monster Hunter World, but not. Monster Expedition is exactly like Monster Hunter World, except totally different. not really. This is a distilled single-player variation that does not single-player, it's 1 to 4 player variation that does not require that you have played Carnival of Monsters, but it does exist in this universe. The thing that piqued my interest is this is done by Alexander Pfister, who I have enjoyed 87.2% of his games, and so I'm looking forward to trying it out. It has a solo variant with 10 campaign scenarios, and you may or may not see that. And on the lighter side, we have Bayonets and Tomahawks, the French and Indian War. This arrived, I'd initially purchased and backed a few GMT games, but for some reason this just called to me. It screamed to me. It screamed across the water, come find me. So I did. It's a point-to-point area control war game that pits the French and Indians and the British in the pre-America days. This one it's kind of okay solo, but not necessarily geared towards solo, but it's the first, I believe, in the Mark Rodriguez designs, so I'm going to give it a shot. Perhaps you will too. And third, The Initiative. This is a game by Corey Konieczny, and it is a story, strategy, and code-breaking game, a cooperative game in which you're playing this sort of what's the best way to describe it? Like Jumanji kind of thing. I don't want to give it away. It is a game that you do play through, I believe, once. Notice I haven't even opened it yet, but I want to try and play it with my wife and see. You're doing some things to kind of code break and guess stuff, and I don't know. It was weird enough that I thought I'd give it a try. And finally, third, again, Red Rising. This is the latest game from Jamie Stegmaier, Stonemaier Games. Red Rising is based on a series of dystopian books in which different colors play a big part and a different sort of caste system of colors. I did an unboxing. I will probably do that. It looks fairly simple. I haven't done a lot with it. As a general rule, because I'm weird and quirky and full of hair, if I have an opportunity to read some backstory on a game, I will. That's how I ended up reading all of the Expanse books after I bought the Expanse game. It's how I ended up reading books on Churchill after buying the Churchill game. It's really how I do it. I get Dune, for example. I went back and read Dune before I played Dune Imperium, so it's probably going to be a while before I review this because it looks like there's a lot of books in the series. But while the initial 20 pages, I think I read 4 times just trying to get interested, but then it kind of jumped a little bit and got interesting after people died. Sorry, that's just how it works. But yeah, those are my 3 games. Now let's get to Tim Machine. Okay, the year is 1987. That was a quirky year in my life, and I think it's because as I went back and looked for the top stories, things were weird. There was Ronald Reagan's Berlin speech, which I remember and got to hear directly through the TV, and it wasn't even black and white. The stock market tanked badly, and that caused a global financial crisis. I remember that. And the Jim Bakker scandal led to his resignation, which meant that, yay, my Sundays were free and I didn't have to get forced to watch the Jim and Tammy Bakker show. No love lost there. The top movie was Fatal Attraction. The top song was Walk Like an Egyptian from the Bangles. Yeah, they're still doing good. Windmills of the Gods by Sidney Sheldon was the top book. I still haven't read that one. Perhaps you have. But more importantly, what did I play? I played Onslaught. That was an entry into wargaming that sort of turned the corner for me. I played it for a while, and then life changed because, well, I graduated and life got busy and things called bills happened. What game would I have bought if I had known then what I know now? Well, I would have bought the Perry Mason game because I was a big Perry Mason fan. Perry Mason and Ironsides. I was a throwback era at that point. My parents were really big on old shows, and black and white was right. Color was no. Let's just go back to the old classics. So a lot of Perry Mason, and for some reason I would have played that one. Yes, I know it's probably not as cool as a war game, but what game did I want to play? It was a game called Chopper Chase, and Chopper Chase was right up my alley as well. I was also heavily into computers back then. I had an old GDS 8760 CP/M operating system thing that my parents very kindly let me put on the kitchen table, which meant we had no kitchen table because of the size of it anymore. But here we are. So that's it. Now let's get to 1988. This was the year I graduated, and it was quite the year. Quite the year, personally and globally. The big story was the end of the Iran-Iraq War, which was just the start of another set of wars after that. The top movie was Rain Man, and I truly believe Dustin Hoffman is still one of the most versatile actors I have seen in my lifetime. The top song was Faith by George Michael, and the top book was Queen of the Darned by Anne Rice. What did I play? Merchant of Venice. That's right. And now I have a second edition of Merchant of Venice, and it's still just as cool. What game would I have bought if I'd known then what I'd know now? Well, Blood Bowl. Seriously. Since then there's been Blood Bowl variants and Blood Bowl computer and Blood Bowl. Seriously. What was I thinking? Oh, that's right. I was graduating. And what game did I want to play? I really wanted to play The Hunt for Red October, even not having read the books. I ended up getting Red Storm Rising, which the board game very recently, within the last few months, and eventually someday I'll grab Hunt for Red October too. These are oldies but goodies and classics in their own right. Thanks again, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your April and go into May, and we'll see you again on next. Let's see if I can formulate a sentence. Thanks, and we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.